Good afternoon. I'm Ben Gleason from ARx. Thank you for joining us on our ongoing webinar series for education topics within revenue cycle. Today, we're hosting with Kimberly Scatia, Vice President of Revenue Cycle from Mercyhealth. Tell me about your journey to becoming a VP of Revenue Cycle at Mercyhealth.
Oh, wow. I never expected that this was going to happen. I spent the first 10 years of my career in industry working for hospitals in the Florida area, which is where I'm from. And then I spent about 12 years in consulting and really thought that that was going to be where I ended my career. Enjoyed it tremendously and ended up working at Mercy as a consultant. They had found themselves in some financial difficulties, some extreme difficulties, and had brought in my organization to help. And part of my role was an interim VP role. And part of my task as the consultant on site was to help hire for the role. And again, I never in a million years thought that this would happen. I actually thought that I wasn't ever going to go back into industry. That just wasn't in the cards for me. Joined Mercy in January of 2020. So if you think back from where we are today, that was when COVID was sort of a thing. You kind of heard these rumblings around the country, but it was just, it was like the flu. And I was having many conversations with the CEO about filling the role and writing a job description, and he would jokingly say to me, well, unless I can convince you to stay. And I would laugh every time. And in February of 2021, after having been there a couple of months and really understanding what Mercy stands for and understanding what their kind of structure is, my CEO jokingly said it again. And I said to my husband, we really need to think about this. And we did. And so I'll never forget it. One Friday evening, the CEO called me and we were talking through some challenges we were having with some of our managed care organizations. And he again said, we have this meeting on Monday with the recruitment specialist and we need to talk about the VP role. And he said, unless I can convince you to stay. And then one thing led to another. And I accepted the role. It was late February. So my official start date was March 23rd of 2020, which I'll never forget. It will forever be etched in my mind because 3 days prior is when President Trump actually announced COVID as a major pandemic. Things started to shut down, and unfortunately, my first official role or official task in this role was to create a furlough plan. So it's been a long journey, but it absolutely has been the best thing I have ever done in my career.
Well, you've done a lot of great things in your career. So, that has to top it all. Being new to your position of Vice President of Revenue Cycle at Mercyhealth, what was that like coming in at the onset of COVID?
So we had some major financial challenges. We were set to lose millions of dollars in one of our markets, and it would have been the first time in the 40-year history of Mercy that it ever happened. And so I knew going in I had challenges. I never knew I was going to be dealing with a pandemic on top of it. So it was it's a little scary, to be totally honest, right? In 12 years in consulting, I went around the country and told people what to do and how to make things better. And now it was time to put my money where my mouth was. And so I had to very quickly mobilize and figure out, how am I going to keep business going, right? How am I going to keep the follow-up teams, the billing teams, and keep everybody rolling and not miss a beat? Oh, and by the way, deal with a pandemic and either socially distance them or send them home or, whatever the case may be. So it was a huge challenge, and I look back every day and think, wow, we've done a lot. So we had to top everything off, we had these major technology challenges that we had to go through, right? We had to figure out just how to get people access, how to make sure they were doing the right things at the right times. And in all the years that I've been in revenue cycle, I have never walked into an organization and said, you're understaffed, ever. Like, it's never happened. And when I came to Mercy, even before I accepted the role and did the analysis, I was like, you have about a third of the staff that you need. We're 6 hospitals. We have 800 employed physicians. And we had it's not even lean. I mean, it was a minimal staff. And basically, through the years of growing and mergers and acquisitions and hiring new physicians, they just never added staff. And so they were just struggling tremendously. So we had some major challenges to get through, for sure.
So what were some of the things that you did? You said you had these staffing challenges and you had to kind of create ways to deal with the staffing challenges. What were some of the things that you did at your organization?
So the 2 biggest things that we made sure to do, number one, we put in technology. So we put in an application that was exception-based workflow so that we could make sure that the right person was working the right account at the right time. So that was number one. Number 2 was recruit, right? We had to do some recruiting, but as you know, and as most people in the industry know, when you recruit somebody, you've got a lot of training and a lot of upskilling time that you have to go through. And so the third thing that we did that was super important was to find a partner, multiple partners in some instances, but find a partner that could do some extended business office work for us. It was honestly, at that time, it was critical to our success. I had I don't even remember how bad the receivables were. I'm pretty sure it was somewhere in the 35 to 40 million range that we utilized an extended business office via ARx. We had to have staff that were ready to hit the ground running, not people that I had to train. I needed people who knew Medicare and knew Medicare HMO and knew Blue Cross and could just jump in and start working and help us with this massive backlog of receivables. It was, I mean, honestly, I don't think we would be where we are today had that not happened.
So to accommodate your staffing challenges, did you have to change your model? Did you take an approach with the work at home model, or did you keep your staff mostly on site?
So it's really interesting for us because we did not have the technology infrastructure to send people home. So it took us several months to get there. We had partners using remote desktop and, we even had some partners that in the beginning were using their own personal equipment and, remoting to a Citrix connection and getting through applications. And so we had some major challenges there. We've since fixed a lot of that, and we are most of my staff is hybrid. All my coding staff, they are working from home. My physician coding staff is in a hybrid model. My billing collections department, I am hiring in case anyone's wondering. But yeah, we've transitioned to a hybrid program. We are actively working on getting full remote based on a role. But the nice thing was, again, as we think about some of the things that we did over that year and a half in 2020 and into 2021 is when we used our extended business office through ARx or even our extended business office for my self-pay side, they worked as our employees worked, right? We made sure to send them the data, but if we had processes that needed to be done in our host system, the extended business office does it in the host system, just like if they were sitting in the office or one of my partners working from home. And again, it's critical to our success because we have to ensure that, things need other departments. We need input. We need to make sure that we're working together to reach the same goal. And it wasn't like we had to spend an exorbitant amount of resources in an IT here's your spec, and you got to do all these transfers of data and bringing up all this other technology. We didn't have to do that. And that's, as we started thinking about extended business office, that was the number one priority for me, was to make sure I did not have to do that, because again, we were limited on resources.
Yeah, it's created quite a staffing challenge, because actually you said it recently, had the opportunity to listen to you speak in Georgia, but you stated that we are no longer choosing our employees are choosing us. How's that amended your approach to bringing on new talent to join you at Mercy?
It's really interesting, because I have a very critical role that I'm interviewing for right now. I'm interviewing for a director of my business office, and so I've done a few interviews, and they've all been virtual. That's kind of the world we live in right now. And as we've gone through the interviews, I ask my questions, we do the introduction, and my typical statement to anyone I'm interviewing is, look, I know what the workforce is like. I know that you can go anywhere. Tell me what you're looking for and ask questions. I said, you're interviewing me just as much as I'm interviewing you. And I know that. I work with my team, extensively on retaining the employees we have. And my number one goal is to be a workplace where people want to come to work. I want people that want to be here. I want them to feel valued. I want them to feel innovative. And I want them to feel appreciated.
With that eye towards the future, so you're currently in a hybrid model and you're looking to get to a more remote workforce. During that panel discussion, you also had mentioned something that intrigued me as well. And you were talking about the standpoint that we teach our employees how to do a specific job, but we don't teach them how to work from home. I think that was not only looking at it that we need to add to our education, but I think you were also kind of pointed to something that we don't talk about a lot as an industry as we've moved to this remote workforce, and the mental health toll that it typically takes on employees as well. Is that accurate?
It's very accurate. I do multiple meetings throughout the month. I do what we call rounding with individual departments, and I do it with all of my leaders, supervisors and above. And every month we're talking about different things. And this month, actually, we were talking about burnout. And it goes directly to your question, because we actually had some major challenges when we went to the hybrid program, because we had people that were, signing on all hours of the day and night, answering emails at 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning. And we had to put some guardrails in. And at first, people were pretty upset about it. But as we started to go through the process and talk to our leaders, we talked about, look, the worst thing we can do is have someone who can't disconnect, right? I'm very blessed. I have an office in my home. My children are grown, so I have an extra bedroom. Not everybody has that. Some people are working in, an actual bedroom, and so they have a door. And some people might be working at a table in their dining room. And we have to encourage people to disconnect, to make sure that they're making times for themselves and their families, because otherwise, honestly, with the workforce industry the way it is, let's go somewhere else. They'll go somewhere where it is a priority.
Just like in any great relationship, it all boils down to communication. Is there anything that you've specifically done to keep that communication open with your staff and just being an open door or resource for them?
Oh, yeah. So all of my staff, over 500 of them, have my cell phone number. They all know they can text, call, or email me anytime. And I do make a point to go, and I have what's called VP luncheons. And so those luncheons are only allowed for staff members. So no management is allowed to come, so that they can feel comfortable that they want to talk about anything. They can talk about their dog or their cat, or they can tell me how much they don't like their manager or whatever. I make it a point to be as available as I can for them, because I learn a lot by listening to them. And generally, most people want to do a good job and they have great ideas. So yeah, stay available.
It's a great saying, especially in today's environment. So Kim, for those that may not have experience with outsourcing, what do you look for in a partnering company? And what happened in the first few months that you had looked for partners outside of Mercy to help you with your challenges with your AR?
Yeah, so obviously cost is, number one, but that's everywhere, right? So we got to make sure we get the best bang for our buck. But really and truly, what we were specifically looking for was someone who could not only help us work accounts, but help educate and make us better. And by that, what I mean is anybody who's been in revenue cycle for any period of time knows that there are challenges, right? You get a new electronic health record upgrade and something breaks. You put a new contract in your system and something now all of a sudden doesn't write off correctly as an expected contractual. So what we were looking for was a partner who would work with our teams continuously, not, let's do it once a month or whatever, who would literally meet with us as often as we wanted to talk about what are you finding, what are the trends, are you seeing system issues that we need to fix and resolve, and potentially help educate some of our newer staff on some of the processes. And this is where ARx, I think, shines more than anybody that I've ever worked with, because I remember in the early stages, I think we went live in May of 2020, if memory serves me right. And I remember in the very early stages, we were meeting every single week. And we had issue logs and we were talking about the things we were finding, and we were having open discussions about what's really going on, and do you know this is happening, and is it a system problem, or do we need to involve IT? And I had at a different point in this journey, we had another organization that was working with some of our physician receivables, and that didn't happen. So it's extraordinarily important, because not only was ARx helping us clean up the backlog, but they were helping us get better for the future. It's been a great journey, and I really don't think that the Mercyhealth revenue cycle would have been able to get where we are today, where we're hitting our cash targets, and I mean, wow, in 2020, we just blew it out of the water. We ended our fiscal year, which was June 30, 2021, we reduced our days in AR by 34%. I'm sorry, 34 days in 1 year. Like, that's unbelievable. So.
Yeah, that's tremendous. You can certainly hang your hat on that and all the improvements that you've made throughout the organization.
Yeah.
So you have somewhat of a unique perspective, again, coming in as a new VP into revenue cycle, and also coming in at the onset of COVID. So you didn't experience and you didn't have all those ways that you were set in. So I think some of that perspective can be leveraged and shared with revenue cycle managers. So is there any advice that you would give to somebody that's, I guess, maybe new to their position from a management or a leadership perspective? And, and what are those things that you would share, not only from your experiences, but as we continue to change to a new remote or staffing model?
Yeah, there's so much. There's so much going on, right? So there's several things that I think leaders in general, not just VPs. I think this goes all the way down to like the supervisor level. There's several things that we need to be super hyper aware of. And the first thing, and I tell my staff this all the time, don't tell me why I can't, tell me how I can. That is like the biggest thing we talk about, because revenue cycle is the dumping ground. It always has been, right? Whatever the front end does, it's our problem to fix it and get it out the door and get paid for it. But that doesn't mean that you're chained to not making improvements. And so we do a lot of work to bridge the gap between clinical IT and revenue cycle IT and billing, and talk through the appropriate terminology to fix some of that. Tell me how I can. That's the big thing. And honestly, for a new person coming into this role, the other two big things I will say is always look at a process with fresh eyes. Step back away from what you know and look at a process with fresh eyes. You know, think outside the box, basically, so that you can find the solutions. And read everything you can, doesn't even matter if it's healthcare, in industry in general, about what's going on in the recruitment cycle. Because, you know, I mean, heck, I'm competing with Chick-fil-A. Got a brand new Chick-fil-A that opened near one of my hospitals, and they're paying $1 more an hour. You know, so I have to figure out, how do I recruit those people in, and you know, make sure that they're happy, which is a big challenge. We don't teach leaders how to engage your employees and, you know, how to be happy, especially with this world, right? How do you have water cooler talk on a video screen? You know, it's a challenge, and it all comes from the top down. You have to train your leaders. You have to, you know, give them the tools that they need. And we, I say we, I mean the entire industry as a whole, have not done that. We have not. There aren't tools out there. There aren't tools that teach you how to manage a workforce and keep them engaged.
I like your perspective of stepping back from the scenario and view it with fresh eyes. I was recently on a website, and they said that we no longer think outside the box. We think as if there is no box. And
I like that.
That was a little refreshing, because it doesn't hold you to that traditional thought of, okay, this is the box and you're either inside it or outside of it. What if there is no box?
Mm-hmm.
And
I like that.
You know, what you said resonated with me. You've always been open to helping people grow in their careers. You've been a mentor, you've been a leader, you've been many things to many people. And one of the many things that I appreciate about you. Would you ever be open if people wanted to reach out to you and learn more about your experiences, or, you know, is that something that you're open to?
Oh, absolutely. I don't want to be remembered for having the best revenue cycle team in the country. I want people to remember me as someone who helps others to grow in their career. I wish someone had told me when I was 19 about the value of networking, instead of, let's call it, later in life. But yes, I'm a huge fan of having contacts, having people you can reach out to in healthcare and outside of healthcare, right? Sometimes you need someone else's perspective, you know, so that you can talk through something and have them say, yeah, that doesn't make sense, you know? So yeah, I'm completely open to continuing that networking.
Thank you, Kim. I appreciate all this conversation. I think you've shared a lot, and we've covered a lot of ground that's really hitting home for a lot of our leaders in revenue cycle and in finance within the healthcare realm. Is there anything else that you would want to share, or anything that's critical that you see coming up or that you've experienced here recently?
Well, there's a lot coming up in healthcare, so we won't open that Pandora's box for sure. I think we've covered a good portion of what's gone on over the last year and a half. I think the biggest thing I would like to say to the leaders out there is, you know, it's a new world that we're in. You know, we have to start really considering our staff and everything that we do. Whether that means that you've got to teach your leaders how to have a hybrid environment, or recognizing when your staff is about to burn out and getting a partner, you know, getting an ARx partner or someone to help to relieve some of the burden. You have to be aware of what's going on. You know, without that, you're going to be in a vicious cycle of losing staff, you know, recruiting staff, training staff. And let's be honest, our staff is our number one most important commodity that we have.
Kim, we can't thank you enough. You've been great spending this time with you and sharing your experiences, as well as some insight on how to have that eye to the future of revenue cycle. So thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, thanks everybody for joining us today. We appreciate it if you take a look at our website for additional education series webinars that come out in the near future. And have a great afternoon.